Say go.
Okay, go.
Okay, that,
Okay, so okay, I'm gonna go. Hi, welcome to our weekly voice chat at Men's Humans Rights from menarehuman.com. Today we're going to talk about intersectional feminism and why the men's rights movement has criticisms of the feminist theory of intersectionality. This is something feminists talk about a lot, how their feminism is intersectional. And what intersectional means, or what they claim that it means, is that they look at all the different intersections of inequality. So, not just gender, but race, class, poverty, all those circumstances, and how people are affected by different intersections. So, there is such thing as male privilege, but there's also racial disadvantage. So, a black man, feminists would say, would have male privilege, but also be disadvantaged because of systemic racism. And this is kind of how their intersectionality works. So you would have a situation where a white male would be considered at the very top of the privilege charts intersection, and then a black woman would be at the very bottom because all those different intersections are working against them or working in their favor. Now, here's why I disagree with that. First of all, obviously, MRAs would disagree with the notion of societal male privilege. And so the entire formula, if you will, of intersectionality is flawed. But secondly, I've seen this a lot of times used in a very selective or disingenuous way. For example, I had a debate about homelessness and homeless shelters. And basically, she was saying, well, yeah, it makes sense that um, women are given shelters before homeless men because under intersectionality, a homeless woman is more disadvantaged than a homeless man. Surely a middle class woman is more privileged than a homeless man. And they say, oh, yes, of course. But you would be more likely to support a scholarship program for middle class women than you would be opening homeless shelters for men. So the intersectionality system is like tiered in a very strange way, and it's always men who, especially white men, who get the short end of the stick. So if you're talking about CEOs, you say, oh, well, female CEOs should get an advantage in hiring to make it equal. When you're talking about homelessness, you still have the same intersectionality. You still say, oh, well, yes, homeless women and women of color and men of color should get homeless shelters before men and white men, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have it divided like that because now you're essentially giving as much help to a you're essentially giving more help to a wealthy woman as you are a homeless man because a homeless man is seen as still privileged because he's a man on his intersection of homelessness, and the wealthy woman is still seen as disadvantaged in her section of intersectionality. So it's a very confusing, very disingenuous system that seems to be designed intentionally to be misused. And then, of course, I always argue that if you really want to have an intersectional movement, you should look at the men's rights movement because we recognize how, for example, trans men have some unique problems when they are now socially seen as male or legally considered male. And we've had articles on this in the past posted here. All of a sudden, they start experiencing a new sexism that they never experienced before as men. And the idea of male privilege and female privilege would be different in different parts of the world because there are different laws in different places around the world. I wouldn't compare the men's rights movement in Australia and the men's rights movement in Saudi Arabia, for example. But feminists kind of have this one overall overarching theory of intersectionality, which they claim is very nuanced, but I kind of think is the opposite of being nuanced. It's actually not very nuanced at all. It's very absolute and very generalizing with very little flexibility.
yeah, one other thing that's worth mentioning is how the system is set up to begin with. So basically, what intersectionality is really is a good observation in principle, where you say, okay, so being homeless is bad, being disabled is worse, and being both together is like even worse than that. So you've got layers and layers of, like if you imagine a large jug, and homelessness is added, and disability is added, and all these other things are added, and they just make your life worse as they fill up the jug until it's unbearable. And that's their theory in principle. And basically, good things you have in your life deduct, uh, like they deduct from the jug, so you have less, less, awful things in your life. But the thing is that while this is debatably like a good principle, if you set it up properly and you don't try to weight the values of each of these different things arbitrarily, what they do is they weight them arbitrarily and they weight them in a way which conforms to their biases. So intersectionality becomes basically a kind of axiom. So they rely on the it being really obvious that you know adding together different forms of discrimination and disadvantage makes things worse for you, as cover for smuggling in ideological elements which they then pass off as being part of the whole. So basically, they add in, yeah, and women have it worse than men, therefore, that's, extra in the jug, extra discrimination, extra bad things that make it harder for you to be a woman. But that just rips away all the context and all the nuance and everything that you really need to understand what it's actually like to be the different genders. Because if you look at it rationally and you look at it with a careful eye, you understand very quickly that men and women have different problems. They often have problems that are very, very similar, or the opposite side of a coin. But you also realize that there are advantages and disadvantages to being each gender. So it's not as simple as saying, oh, you get 50 extra oppression points for being a woman, and you get minus 50 oppression points for being male. That's really not how that works, especially when you consider how many like systemic problems that men have to deal with, like being the majority of all suicide, homelessness, and drug addiction, and workplace death, and so on victims. It's it's basically the cartoon coloring book version of reality is what intersectional feminism is, but they dress it up with academia, and they engage in basically they work at making it real. They work at, or at least they work at giving it the veneer of reality. So they essentially dress up ideological things in common sense things. So sexism and racism, what they mean by sexism and racism is very different to what we mean by sexism and racism. You have to imagine everything they say. After every word, there's like an asterisk, and then there's a whole book full of stuff that they're not really saying when they talk about these things in public. So you have to be very, very careful to understand how they mean these terms, because they define sexism in a way that is arbitrarily constructed to exclude men. So they say that in order for it to be real sexism, it has to be systemic, but then they deny all the systemic discrimination men suffer. And they say, no, that's not systemic, that's patriarchy. So they basically take you and they stunt you off down a different train track using ideological language that prevents you from having the same conversation with them that they are having with you. So it's very, very similar to how brainwashing works, basically. Like they redefine words and they alter what things mean, so that when you say one thing, it has all these other meanings. It has this special definition and stuff like that. So it makes it very, very hard to talk to them. But the main point to take away here is that intersectional feminism is it's like those weird personality tests you find online. At least that's what it centers around, where they arbitrarily give you different point values for different things. But it really depends on which part of intersectional feminism you ask what the point things are. I mean, we could sit here and take the intersectional feminism test we want. There's some various online versions. There's one with scroll bars which allow you to precisely set the level of discrimination you face for like different genders, sexualities, and so on. And it's really kind of mind blowing that they've managed to smuggle this past everyone. But at the same time, it's not, because it kind of plays into a lot of human sort of problems, like stereotyping people. As much as like the feminists like to say that they don't stereotype people, intersectional feminism is all about stereotyping people. And this is what allows them to say that, for example, Oprah Winfrey is more discriminated against than a homeless man on the street because she's a black woman. Because they add in, like, homelessness is like gives you 50 oppression points, but being a woman gives you 50, and being black gives you 50. So she's got 100 oppression points, and the guy on the street is male, so he gets minus 50 oppression points, and that means that he bottoms out at being zero oppressed, like he's not oppressed at all. Although they might, it depends on what they count really. So if they count drug addiction, that could be like a few oppression points there, and so on and so forth. It's a really, really mind-boggling way of looking at the world, and it's it both plays into human foibles like the stereotyping and the tribalism, but at the same time it subverts them even further than they normally are, and makes it all about mathematically determining how much sympathy we should have for a given person. And of course, they being, the people creating the system are the ones who win every time. They are the ones who get the maximum amount of victim points by design. And that's the thing you have to take away here. Everything in this system is by design intended to give the people who designed it and their special interest groups the maximum number of points, while taking the maximum number away from people they don't like. So the more mainstream you are, the less points you get, and the less mainstream you are, the more points you get. To a certain extent, it does depend on various things, like everything from sexuality to religion to your politics and all that sort of stuff can play into it. Blue, did you want to tip?
Yeah, and the worst part is they treat it as if it's a scientific fact. So if you disagree with it, they'll say, oh, you need to educate yourself and learn what it is, as if the only reason why you disagree is because you don't understand it properly. Oh, go learn about it and then you'll see. No, that's not what it is. It's not that I don't understand how the theory is supposed to work. It's that I don't agree with it and that I don't think it's true. So it's not that I don't understand it. It's that within the context of understanding, I still reject it because I don't think it's valid and I don't think it makes sense. It's not absolute science. It's not like an equation like E equals MC squared. It's not like a law of physics where it's an absolute. It's just a made up theory.
It's an axiom, is what they rely on. And axioms can be good. Like an axiom of science that we need to do science is that science is doable and the universe is understandable and stuff like that. But this is them turning smuggling ideology in behind that, like behind the various things they're doing. Kathleen, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that you see this kind of thing a whole lot of times go hand in hand with identity politics, where they say, well, you know, if you're a Black lesbian female, you have to be a feminist. And if you don't identify as a feminist, that makes you evil. And you're just not understanding who you are.
Yeah, that's pretty typical tribalistic exclusionism. It's like when they say you're not Black if you don't support this political party and believe this particular thing, and follow this ideology and like all that sort of stuff. Like you become white somehow.
Their code for that is internalized misogyny or internalized racism or internalized whatever it is. It's way
Yeah.
of it's the way of still applying the system to it.
Yeah,
What's
that
scary
is. Hello, sorry.
I think what's scary is it's young women or many people buy into that because it suits their own perception, it suits their own agenda.
I think it's very much about that. It's like they took their agenda and then set it up like an RPG. It's quite
That's what
strange.
feminism has always been, about. It's about advancing women's rights, but the problem with it is that it totally ignores all of men's rights and whatever they mean. So you can take examples of that. You can say what they do in Australia when, the National Organization for Women protested against having equal shared custody between a man and a woman when they have a child. And why would they do that? Because they want to advance women's rights, but they're advancing it beyond what men have.
They still want men to suffer under the patriarchy for their privilege.
I didn't catch that. Is that something about patriarchy?
Your audio is pretty bad.
I'm saying it. What I'm saying
Yeah,
is,
it is really bad. I mean, I think you need to fix your mic or something.
is it okay now?
I can hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
What I'm saying is, they still want benefits from their so-called patriarchy at the expense of men. They don't care for the problems men suffer under the patriarchy. All they care is they want more women equality, but also the benefit the patriarchy already provides. They are ready to they are not ready to sacrifice those benefits for the welfare of the men.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. The thing that
Sorry, like human, could you possibly explain what he just said, because I didn't get much of that through my mic.
Okay, so basically what he said was, feminism likes the patriarchy when it gives them special privileges, but it doesn't like the patriarchy when it gives them responsibilities or any negatives. So it's basically they're gaming the system. They want all the good things, but none of the bad things. So, I mean, I've said before that feminism basically is the patriarchy, because when you look at it closely, you start to see them arguing for like really, really old-fashioned stuff, like separate train carriages and spaces for men and women, that sort of thing, like separating off the genders and stuff like that. I've seen feminists say that they like face coverings, like, it's like, oh, it stops the male gaze and stuff like that. And very slowly, they seem to be evolving into like one of these really old cultures where women cover themselves up, they stay in particular places, and they have men to protect them, which is what happens in tribal societies. It's what happens in very old-fashioned Orthodox societies where, like, the men and the women will walk on different sides of the street and things like that. It's very much.
quite simply, to me, the patriarchy doesn't exist as it's talked. That there is a certain classist issue, definitely. I mean, the rich have always, oppressed the poor and tried to keep their power in that kind of sense. But that's not a gender issue. It's not a sex issue. It's more of one of just one type of people oppressing another, and it's not the things like the patriarchy are introduced to try and control the population, distract them from the real problems of, well, a ton of people have money and a ton of people don't, and they want to keep it that way.
Well, yeah, you'll notice that the feminists, what they're starting to say in response to us about certain things, that it's a class issue, it's the rich having too much sort of thing. When we talk, but when they talk, they never ever ever talk about that stuff. They basically make out that it's a gender issue, and I think this does speak to their sort of Marxist sort of influences.
There's a lot of men who are poor. There's a lot of men who are driven to do, extreme things like rob somewhere because they don't have any money, and it's the exact same situation that a lot of feminists would say, um, women would be forced to do because of patriarchy or something like that. They don't have any money, they can't do anything else. They're literally driven to commit crimes. Poverty in society is a real problem.
Yeah, that's true, but they will take that and they'll say, "Oh no, 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 no! This is evidence that men as a gender are defective and that they need to be reconditioned and taught not to be bad." Like it's not never anything to do with uh like societal situations or anything like that. And if you know about this stuff, you'll notice that that rhetoric is the exact same rhetoric that racists use. It's very, very, very much the same sort of rhetoric. I mean, this is why you can just word replace what feminists say with words like black and things like that, and you just get straight up racist rhetoric.
I think
Yeah,
what's more disgusting is that they go any length to protect a woman, no matter how hideous uh, crime she might have committed, or whatever the fuck she have done. She Feminists go any length to protect or defend women, even if even if they are at wrong.
They do,
Even in
yeah.
murder, even for murder, we've seen cases in the UK. Um, Ironically, there was a couple of Indian descents, and they were both in their 70s or 80s, so they were older, elderly really, and he was confined to a
yeah,
wheel.
they even protect pedophiles. Female pedophiles. They protect them and just try to justify that.
Yeah,
Well,
the
Yes,
woman
I
I'm
was
talking
just
about.
gonna say.
the real question is, gentlemen. I mean, I think for the past at least 10 years, we understand what the problem is. How the hell do we solve it?
That's a good question.
Good.
We need to organize. We need to start having actual local chapters of people who meet up. I think in person, and the
I
equality.
don't think that would help because you see, uh, men and women we work differently. Because frankly speaking, when we, come in a group, it's just in our second nature to start making jest, unless we have some particular work to do, mostly non-social.
I think
This is
your
a
mic
social
is
problem.
dropping a bunch of words. I got that. Yeah, it
Oh,
is a social problem. I do think that having local chapters would help a lot because when you've got people who meet up in public and you can see their faces and you can see that they're not awful people and they talk a lot of sense and they don't shout and they don't act like crazies, suddenly that puts a human face on a movement, and I think it is something we're going to have to eventually do. The trick is getting away with it because these people, they will actually attack you in a very, very underhanded way. They will go after your
Yes,
job,
they will.
they'll harass your family, they will spray paint stuff on your house, they'll
Well,
do
if
whatever they can
well,
get away with.
People like
here's the
Antifa,
thing,
they do that.
we can't win against women in their own games. I mean, that's unreasonable for us to think.
We're not against women.
No, it's well, they are against us. You can
No,
put your
no, they're
head
not.
down. I
No,
mean,
they're not.
not individual women, they're not, but the society in the social setting, that is what the society has come to.
No,
I think that's
I
a
really
really
disagree.
dangerous line. Yeah.
Oh,
I
well,
really
I am
disagree.
a dangerous person.
Mm,
I am a dangerous person,
I
so
think
of course I'm
only a
gonna think
small
I'm a.
percent of women identify as feminist. I think
But
even in India
all
it's
percentage
5
of
or 4%.
women.
guys,
Here's the
please, one
thing:
at a time.
all of them, all of them, you know, profit from that change in the society.
Women
That's
do
Have we
group
ever
profit
seen
guilt.
a woman?
from.
No, I do not agree with group guilt. I do not agree with like guilt by association. That's really not what we're about here. It just does
Yeah,
not work
it's not.
on any level.
Yeah.
There are ideological
I'm
people in charge who are pushing these things. That includes people like Refuge and Now and all that sort of people. And there are people on the ground, both men and women, who support them. And there are also men and women who oppose them. And we need to make sure we maintain that level of nuance. Because if we give in to group tribal thinking, then we just become another us versus them, and that's not helpful at all. I mean, we have at least one woman here, oh, two women here in the chat right now, so it can't be all women against all men.
I
And
am not saying that it's actually not possible that it would be all women. I'm not saying that it's all women.
When you say women,
We are talking
it
about a.
does give the impression that you're talking about women in general.
Come on, guys. We are talking
It.
about a social issue. In social issues, it
Hmm.
is always generalization. That's how I mean, otherwise it would be hard to talk.
Well,
I'm
it's not
It's
what we
pretty.
always
encourage.
generalization.
Hmm.
It's not what we say. We don't say that it's women because it's not. Saying women in general, saying men in general. Yes, we can talk about it in terms of statistics or something like that, but we're we're not saying that it's women that are the problem. Never.
Yeah, because what you're saying
What is
essentially
the
is
problem?
the very intersectionality that we're talking about. The reason why we're against intersectionality in the first place is because it's so generalizing. So I would have to agree that no, I mean, we can't talk in generalizations like that.
What
It is
percent?
actively. Oh, sorry.
What percent of women in the UK identify as feminists? I saw a couple years ago the statistics, and it was less than 50% actually.
Yeah, it's dropping worldwide.
At this point, it's 10, but the thing is, just because you don't say the name doesn't mean that you don't act like that.
Well, we need to detoxify society generally because men talk like feminists as well, and you'll see feminist rhetoric everywhere. It's it's just a
The
matter
men
of
who talk like
society.
feminists, are they approved by the general men? Or have friend circles around men?
Well, a lot of men disagree with them, but so do a lot of women. We really can't make this about men versus women because if we make it about that, then the feminists will win because they'll say,
It's
look,
never
they're just a
ending.
bunch of misogynists.
I mean,
It's
I
not
don't
about men
find a
versus women.
better
Can
solution.
you please not try and talk over me?
I'm sorry. But
Thank you.
I mean, I'm just trying to find a solution to this, and I'm unable to. So I have no other way.
Well, the solution is just to keep growing the movement, build egalitarianism, and take our issues directly to those in charge. It's the same thing that every movement has to do to enact change. We have to gain a following, we have to gain resources, we have to put people into positions of power, and that's a slow process, but it is something that is happening. We've got a couple of MPs who are very sympathetic to our goals. You know, it's it's something that we have to work on continually, and people saying, "Oh, we can't do anything right now to change this. You know, we can't reach out and snap our fingers and change this law. That means we've lost forever." That's not the case. I mean, it took decades and decades and decades for racism to start being on the losing side. It took us such a long time to just flip the society towards being less racist and all the racist laws being removed and so on and so forth. It's a long ongoing process, and the more men we get on our side, the better. But it,
Men probably, but I don't find it that women will have any kind of look. I
well, I can
have
name a couple
stopped
of women's
considering.
groups that are on
Uh,
our side
yeah,
right now.
yeah. Okay, here's the thing. I
Not to
have
mention Cassie J.
understood.
Do
Yeah,
you know
I
Cassie
can also.
before?
Cassie J has
I can,
never identified as an MRA.
But she was
but here's the
sympathetic
thing.
to the men's
I
rights movement, and
know.
she probably did more for us
I
than
can.
anyone else.
I know better women like Roma Army. Uh, what's that right wing activist? Southern Lawrence. I can name YouTubers as well. That does not solve the problem here, does it?
I think you're naming people who aren't really a
I think.
part of our movement, but uh, thank you,
I
Zeta's
Can I say
brother and
something?
sister.
What I'm saying is,
Please,
it's
please, no,
that
no,
we.
stop, 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 stop. Someone I just asked to speak. Literally, can we please let them?
I think that was the guy who asked to speak.
Kathleen, did you ask to speak?
No.
Who was it who asked to speak?
I did.
Was Zad? Go on, Zad.
I did. What I'm saying is, I think seed means that we are tend to be biased because of the things that are ingrained in us from our childhood. I think it's taught to many girls that boys are like that, boys are like this. You gotta look out for yourself. I think that's a bigger deep-rooted problem. If I take myself as an example, from the childhood, I am taught to be in a certain way. Uh, I'm taught to act in a certain way, even though I do not agree with that. Generally, I do not agree with that. Some do, and we always tend to be biased towards everything. There is no human on a planet that can be biased on cannot be biased on something. I think, Sid, are you trying to say that women tend to be more biased against men than men are against women?
Well, not necessarily. Uh, it might be true. I'm not sure how the way that you want to put it. You may be right, but that's not what I'm personally implying, nor am I against it because I have not thought about it. Uh, I'm just trying to find a solution to the current social problems, and I can't think of one. The one that comes to mind is, since it's a social problem, women should have social repercussions. And the only reasonable one that I can consider or think about is that we just take away what men grant to women, since women have decided they don't want to do their part. So men should just not do their part as well. Maybe they'll come back to their senses that way. The biggest thing that men provide to women is actually security. Contrary to the popular belief that men just are aggressive, mostly we're aggressive because of women, because we have to be. That's how we survive. Protect the women, you be strong. You take away protection from them, then they're on their own. Then probably they realize that yeah, we kind of need to do this together. Until
So
they
what you're
realize
implying
it, I
is,
One's
think
ever going to do
men should
that.
just step back.
We're we're not
Well,
going to do that
collectively,
because we love our women. We love women.
yeah,
Um,
we do.
they
so
don't
we're
really
not going
love
to
you
do that,
back. I
are
mean,
we?
I'm not talking about individuals here. We're not talking. I know women that love me. Well, I think so. See, I'm doubting even them.
Um,
Because the thing is, it has never been tested. Whenever you test it,
may I
most of the time they
may I
fail.
respond?
Most of the time they fail. Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
can we get this conversation back on track? And we really didn't come here to debate like if women are good or not. I mean, that's really
Yeah,
not the point of
true,
this channel.
true.
And
I I think I came in
Can I say
after
something
no,
before?
you can't because you're interrupting. I think I came in after the subject matter was announced. So what actually is the
Yeah.
subject matter, Menahum?
We're talking about systemic discrimination and intersectional feminism. It really sort of drifted more towards intersectional feminism and criticism of the intersectional theory.
Ah, I see.
well, I think that we really need to get back onto that track, and we need to start talking about how this. We set out how intersectional feminism works, and I think we can now talk about. Sid, if you can mute your mic when you're not talking, I think we can now talk about how it is injected into various uh, systems in government and in society, where it then alters and meddles with how those systems run, basically creating situations where the system has to run itself through intersectional feminism before it can do anything.
We've seen proposals, and I think they were successful in some states in Australia, actually introduce intersectional feminism as part of the curriculum for high school students, or even younger than high school students, even like middle school, like 12, 13 years old. And how scary is the prospect of when that becomes the standard part of education? That really will become an ingrained belief. It won't just be some made up theory. Now it will be something that's being presented as scientific fact and established academic fact. And kids will be learning that and forced to learn it and forced to believe it from a young age. So that would be, in my opinion, a disaster, because when you were saying earlier how it sometimes takes decades to undo ways of thinking, like it took decades from the civil rights movement to get rid of a lot of racism in the US, and it still isn't completely gone by any means. 50, 60 years later, it's still an issue. Just imagine how bad the problem would be if they start teaching that in schools.
It would be dire. It would be really dire. We would have to crush it decisively, and then we would have to, in a few years, deal with people who'd been brought up being taught it, getting into the universities and like teaching it again. This is part of the problem with Marxism, actually. The Marxist teachers of like the last generation, they taught students who are now the professors and so on and so forth. So Marxism took a massive nosedive, but then it slowly crept up in recent times. And I think that's a major reason why, because the students of the people, you know, but basically that's what I'm thinking here, is like you teach it in primary school, and then a few years later, those primary school kids are unthinkingly repeating it to other primary school kids, and it just goes on and on and on.
I agree that it's being a massive problem in schools, but I would like to see some talk about how closely we can relate Marxism to the current way we're doing.
Well, we
If
could do
it
that.
is if it is getting into legislation, I think the only response reasonable would be loud protest, because that's what happened in Pakistan when feminists rose out their rallies. Well, we were lucky enough that there was one really brave man named Khalilur Rahman Qamar. He made whole goddamn anti-feminist dramas, which were actually not proposed to be anti-feminist, but were shown in such a way in a particular time when the topic rose out. And then there were anti-feminism rallies. So this is about education. I think at this point it warrants loud protest.
I don't think loud protests would work for MI issues, at least in UK, because uh, people will tend to see it in more negative light, and they will be more likely to agree with the feminists than MI.
Don't title it as MRA then. Just title it as anti-intersectionality education. Don't
I
associate
mean, we
any other
could label
thing.
it. I mean, we could label it as a socialist, communist, or any kind of Marxist, or even Nazi, anything like that. If we label it in a wrong way, there will be more opposition than if we oppose it as an MRA. I agree with your point. That's actually a great point.
Yeah, it's worth remembering. We actually have an article on the site about this. The Sydney Watson protest in Australia for men's rights. Basically, a bunch of intersectional feminists borrowed a bunch of Antifa signs and went and protested the rally, saying that they were not, and they were. If you go on their Facebook page, we've got it archived. They talk about how they're trying to quote unquote control the narrative, which is basically their speak for lie about the opposition's discredit. And it's they do that, and if we do show up as our movement, they will do it again. But we can like reduce that and increase our message by holding the banner of the anti whatever it is we're protesting first and foremost, rather than showing up as under like an MRA banner. I think that does work better, and I've been thinking about it for a while. It's why intactivists, and fathers' rights groups seem like uh, people think they're almost a different movement to us, but actually they're not. They're the same movement. It's just that they specialize, and by specializing, they mitigate a lot of flack. Because instead of having to fight against these MRAs who nobody knows what they actually want, and people don't have to say what we actually want, they just say MRA. Instead, they have to say these people who are against this and who are fighting against this, and that suddenly opens up the conversation, I think. So we really do have to remember that MRA is a description of what we are rather than a description of what we're fighting for. So
I
that
think
is certainly true.
I think to pull a scheme like that, a plot like that, we really have to plan it really carefully, because a single mistake, a single carelessness could backfire.
Yeah, well, I think the best way to do it would just be to center it around a single issue and be saying, yeah, we're going to protest this issue, bring placards related to this issue only, and just be very, very consistent with that. Yeah, and I think that the rest
I
will sort
think
itself
that
out.
would be very
I,
good. Yeah, if we just take one goal at a time. For example, this goal: do not uh, put intersectionality as an accepted theory in the schools. Protest just that. Once that is accepted, take the other goal. Don't add any other title. We don't need the title of MRA if we can achieve our goals otherwise. We don't need to make a title. We do not need to make an organization, an official one, if we can achieve our goals otherwise. because if you remember, feminism started as a good thing. Then they started to take over at least the bad people, or should I say bad women, or greedy folks, because they had the title and they held the power, and they don't want to let go of the power. If we do not create the title to begin with, we just focus on one goal at a time, we can be sure that after we're done, there will be no pedestal for anybody to stand upon to, hijack the whole movement. If
I,
there's no pedestal, nobody can hijack it.
I do agree, except for one thing, which is that feminism was always a good thing. I think it's more fair to say that there were two women's movements, one of which was a good thing, and the other which was feminism, and feminism hijacked the good women's movement. If you look at the history, you'll notice like Erin Pizzey and people like that running like the women's lib sort of movement, which was not anti-male and was in fact very pro-male in that they had like uh, male volunteers in the first female domestic violence shelters, and they wanted to open a male domestic violence shelter, which is where feminists get the claim that they opened the first men's domestic violence shelter. So they actually closed the first men's domestic violence and shot Aaron Pizzey's dog. But yeah, basically there were two movements, one of which was the suffragette bombers, the other was the suffragette. It's basically been like that. I mean, you could say it's more accurate to say there's a whole bunch of different women's movements that can be divided into pro-male and anti-male camps. But yeah. Anyway, I do agree. We need to we need to have a banner that people can't object to. That's the key thing, and I think it's very, very hard to create a banner like that. Zeta? Zeta's mic's making a lot of funny noises. Zeta?
What yeah, yes. So what my idea is, if we can take this thing to the public and show it in a way which uh, show it in a bad light, and we collude it with the things which are not publicly accepted or seems slightly off or even slightly unacceptable, it would be really a great help.
Yeah, I
Since
think
it's public opinion that matters the
I think that you're right. We need like an aggressive PR campaign, basically, where we highlight the negative sides of intersectional feminism, and we basically say, "Hey, isn't this just racism but dressed up with a nice face, like racism and sexism and all that?" And like,
it's just like moral tyranny, a tyranny in which everyone is uh, morally morally punished or morally regulated.
Yeah. It's going to be difficult though because we really need to target places where they're trying to institute, and that means identifying those places. And I don't think that there's going to be an awful lot of press about those places getting in, because you're basically going to have to look at like education. You're going to have to you'll get like a little column in the newspaper maybe that the school is like they're going to be teaching intersectional feminism and what a great thing this is and stuff like that. But yeah, it's
I think we need to make as much as noise as possible. I think to gain more support, the first thing should be to contact other people having the similar goal like us, and after that, convincing others. If we can just slowly gather a few, a, a bit of a support, and we could make some noise.
yeah.
Well, I wish equality for men and boys was here, because his name is Blair, what Blair is trying to do is he's trying to start like localized email groups to actually organize rallies and marches and like petitions and going to political events with signs and calling congressmen. I mean, he really wants to look at the legislative aspects of the men's rights movement, actually changing laws. And that's exactly what he's trying to do. He's trying to get a database of people, groups of people who can be quickly organized to, hey, let's call this congressman, or let's write an email about this issue, or let's start a petition for this issue, or let's go down to City Hall and petition and whatnot.
I know COVID probably isn't the best time for this, but are there any sorts of conferences or national like conventions or anything like that for men's rights in general?
Yes, every year, but not last year because of COVID, but most years there is an annual conference of men's issues in Chicago, and then National Coalition for Men has a monthly video chat, Zoom chat, which you guys are welcome to come to. And National Coalition for Men also does events, marches. Katrina Overfield was explaining how she showed me 2 weeks ago they had a march in Washington, D.C. For false accusations. And they socially distanced, they wore masks, and fortunately, I think we're getting close to the end of COVID with vaccinations, and I'm fully vaccinated, and pretty much everyone I know is fully vaccinated. I know that my local CVS, which was giving the vaccines out, they are now starting to. They don't have enough vaccines. Sorry, they don't have enough people to get rid of all their vaccines, so they're having to throw away old vaccines because they have so many left over, which tells me that people are doing it. So hopefully, we should be able to meet up soon.
I would love to see information about that posted when they get closer and things get organized.
I was actually worried, speaking of intersectionality on the topic of vaccines. I remember about a year ago, was it 6 months ago? It's hard to tell. Time's really weird since COVID and lockdown, but there was a lot of articles proposing, well, should certain racial groups who are at higher risk of COVID get the vaccine first? I also remember, as we all remember, there were all those articles about how COVID was worse for women because they were more exposed to it, even though men were 3 times as likely to die. And I remember worrying, would it be proposed that women should get the vaccine first because they're more likely to, quote, get it, which wasn't even true? When, hang on a minute, if men are more likely to die, and you also said that racial groups at higher risk of dying maybe should get it first, and how does it make sense to give it to men last? And that didn't happen, so that ended up just being paranoia on my end. But I remember we talked about it here last year, and we all kind of agreed that even if it doesn't happen, the fact that it's something that we legitimately worried about, the fact that it's something easy to imagine, is just how ingrained this idea of intersectionality is.
I think intersectionality is not a bad thing in itself, but intersectional feminism is, because they use that to spread hate and propaganda and to gain more support.
Yeah, it's the way it's done. It's not the principle. It's not the idea that's bad. Same thing with feminism. It's not the idea that's bad. It's sometimes the execution and the implementation of it. It's how it's done, rather than what it claims to be. Hi, Rain. I see you just joined us. The topic is intersectional feminism and systemic discrimination. So if you want to say anything, introduce yourself, please do. Silent Storm, I haven't heard from you in the chat yet. Have you have anything you want to add or mention? Okay, Silent, I can
Guess
see.
not at that pause.
Sorry, I had push to talk on. Sorry, you guys can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, I'm not going to say I'm an expert on this topic, but with regards to this, I don't have anything specific to say on this topic. But what came up about the dealing with it more antagonistically is I don't agree with that personally because it tends to create more divide. Like personally, I think that there needs to be there just simply needs to be more groups for men to talk to because in the past it would be more like sports groups or stuff like that where men would get together and discuss the issues, social issues of the day sometimes, and then you would become more aware of it. Like for example, the divorce law issues is just an example. When you're talking to men, when you're around men, it comes up. And today, like that sort of because we're more technological, we're sort of more isolated. It's I'm not saying that there should be men's camps and men's groups, and it should be like a group with activities which everyone is allowed in, but these are the best way to positively reinforce. Oh, okay, so you know, um, reinforce all the things that the good things, like bring it in a positive way.
Well, I'm for the idea of men's clubs. There are like men's sheds are a thing where men all meet up every week to like do woodwork and craft and all that stuff. And it's
Yeah,
like a male only space which
sorry to interrupt you, Manaki.
yeah.
I wanted to say that I'm really interested in, like these men's sheds kind of things and the projects that they could do, and building something or doing something with the men. But I never
Mm.
see them, like around here. I never see them.
Well, you can always start one, but it's yeah, I really love the idea because putting men together in a group like that is something which has been frowned upon for a long time because I think like it's seen as exclusionary even though women have their own groups and clubs. So I think we've lost a lot through destroying the old men's sort of clubs and things. I mean, there's nothing saying that women couldn't have clubs
It,
as well. It's just that these spaces, you should have spaces men can retreat to as a gender where they can, they can open up and they can feel more secure and it's like feminism has this very keen sort of thing where they'll try to invade men's spaces all the time,
yeah,
and I think
it's
that's
like
very, very
they see
dangerous.
it. They see it as some kind of breeding ground for misogyny. Just
Yeah.
it's not like men are just there having comfort with each other and expressing their
It's
ideas and
toxic
thoughts.
masculinity, they will say.
Yeah, they break
What?
them up a lot like counter-revolutionaries or something.
Yeah, I did a video about
They
this
don't.
happened in Toronto 5 years ago. Some men wanted to start a men's community center. It wasn't even a men's rights group. It wasn't specifically a men's rights group. It was just like a men's center. And feminists protested it, tried to get it shut down. And then one of the quotes from the feminists was, "Oh, I'm not against the idea of men having a social group, but I'm suspicious about what exactly is going on in there." It's like, what are you basing that suspicion on?
Yeah, they
She
think that
contradicted
people are
herself.
getting in there and like planning gang rapes or something.
This is exactly it, I think. They're worried that men are going to like start doing like evil things, like they're going to be like, haha, suddenly we've got this secret patriarchy club where we plot the overthrow of women and things like that. When
I
actually
think
what they
that
want to
says
talk
more
about is,
about themselves. It
yeah,
says more about themselves that they suspect that because maybe that's what they're doing.
it's projection, yeah.
What
Yeah.
kind of
The truth, the men who would actually want to do that, first of all, men who would plan secret gang rapes or whatever, they are called human traffickers. They don't care about you or anybody else. You can't do anything about them. they're gonna do it. If there's a club that is expecting female only,
You're breaking up.
Kathleen, did you want to say something?
Yeah, the thing is we have at our country club we have a men's grill room, and women and children are not allowed in there. And I remember asking my dad, like when I was young, like why I couldn't go in there, and he said, you know, men just want to smoke cigars and be able to curse without having women in there, because if the women were in the room, they wouldn't be able to do that.
That's a very fair thing. I mean, and women want their own groups as well. Something
Yeah, a women's.
Can I say something?
Go on.
So what I'm saying is, I think the important part is if we could just encourage school system, education system, or government to support men's own extracurricular activities, like letting them play in the field, letting them read books, letting them make music, letting them do poetry. I think being extracurricular activities, men come together. They are they are able to use their energy in a positive manner. I think sports, physical activity, and extracurricular activity in general in school wise would be really positive effect on them. But rather they are doing exact the opposite. I think which will result in more toxicity.
Well, this is what the Scouts and the Brownies, I think they're called, were originally. Like Baden Powell set up the Scouts, and his wife set up the Girl Scouts, basically. And they ended up he did things with the girls that the girls enjoyed, and Baden Powell took the boys off into the wilderness and taught them survival skills and things like that. And I think we're really kind of missing more of that stuff in society, because once you leave that sort of system, there's nothing really else. There's no adult version of that really, where you can have men's groups going off into the wilderness, and you have to really something you do on your own with your friends rather than something you can do with a trained survival expert and stuff.
Even that's been invaded now. I mean, girls can now join the Boy Scouts, which is a bit weird. I think boys can't join the Girl Scouts for probably.
They're two separate organizations in America.
Yeah.
And I think that was because the Boy Scouts were failing partly. It was an attempt to boost membership. It is a shame really, because it's boys nowadays are just computer games and stuff like that, and they don't have this healthy sort of outdoor activity stuff where they go and they rock climb and they abseil and they camp and all that sort of stuff, which is really important for your independence and your yeah. I mean, the Scouts teach you more life skills than school does. So yeah.
You think school would be a bit more? I mean, it's become so regressive in some ways. School is it's just so feminized. They just sit down at desks and do work. There's no activities anymore.
Yeah, if the Scouts want to do geography, they go and take you to see some of it. You know, then they get you lost in it, and they tell you here's a compass, here's a map. Now navigate your way back out of it again. And
that's fun.
They won't just leave you. Yeah, they won't just leave you there to do it by yourself. But they'll just be sort of standing there waiting for you to work it out and stuff like that, and giving you pointers. It's
a massive shame.
You guys know?
It is.
Guys, can I say something?
Of course.
My school has the biggest sports ground in all the area in which my school is located, but they don't allow kids above 9th grade to play in it. It's always
not sure
empty.
I got that.
I think my school
He
which
said
I'm
that the
studying at.
school has a massive sports area, but they don't allow the children to play in it.
Really? That sounds a bit
I think,
counterproductive.
yeah, we have the largest playground compared to other schools, but they don't let the kids above ninth grade play in it. They sometimes let girls play in it to encourage them to play in sports, but they never do it with guys. And the funny thing is, my school always scolds guys or to children in general for not bringing in uh, competitive awards or trophies in inter-school competitions. But they don't allow us to practice in the ground. How can you expect us to win the trophies?
Yeah, that sounds a bit weird. Why do they stop them going out there?
I don't know. They just want to send children to study and study. To bring you the point, remember I messaged you earlier because today I uh, I just found out something. You see, there's this city called Kota in Rajasthan, a state in India, where it's a famous city where all the students, uh, undergraduates, probably in high school, in the final years of high school, go there to prepare for competitive exams, mostly engineering, STEM field. There, uh, mostly there are more guys than there are girls, but there are quite a few number of girls too, as a STEM field holds a lot of importance in India. Every parent wants to send their kids in STEM field. It doesn't matter if it's if it's restrict their entire movement. If even if it forces them into depression, they do can care about it. So there, for the same price, uh, the there are many students. The majority of the population of the city is actually students. So there, for the same price, girls have a hostel facility, which is almost like a three-star hotel. As compared to boys live in really poor condition and they pay the exact same price. Just imagine a girl can stay in a three-star hotel for a year or two at the same price. Boys are living in a slum-like area. They are charging them the exact same price. That's not even the full picture. They they give girls more scholarship, which I think is kind of justifiable because in that state a bit of uh, discrimination, gender discrimination is prevalent amongst girls because many of them are not allowed to study in that state. But you can look at the difference. One place there's so much good of a system for girls. They're literally putting no effort for the boys. It wouldn't matter if it would slightly good, slightly better. It wouldn't mind, but the difference is like heaven and heaven and earth.
So they're putting boys in a slum area and they're putting girls in a nice area and charging them both the same price.
No, the difference is huge. Like they are putting girls in a building which where they have their own room, like a, a university. They have their own fridge. They have their own canteen. They have their own gym. They have their own uh, library. They have their own security. It's a nice place. Even by Western standard, it would be considered a decent dormitory. At the same price, the girl they don't have such a place for the guys. On the other hand, guys have to search for the PJs, which are extremely unsafe. They have to pay the exact same price the girls pay to live in a nice place with nice facilities, where the other hand, guys cannot.
Maybe you should
Yeah.
try and rally some of the boys to protest that.
You know, Zap, I'd be
I
interested
don't live in this
if you
city.
could manage to get video or footage or pictures of that, and then post it online or make a video
I can.
and showing the
It's
differences.
on YouTube. It's an open secret. Nobody cares actually. It's an open secret. Nobody cares. Actually,
Is it
boys
just that one is it just one
don't give a
university?
fuck because
Is it just one
no,
university?
actually, it's not actually like a university. Let me explain. It's like undergraduate students learning in different coaching centers, living alone and learning in the best and different coaching centers so that they can give some national exams or entrance exam for the college. For that purpose, they are staying. They are going to Koda to study there because
Right.
the city has one of the best coaching centers there. So, uh, so when all matlab, it's 16, the boys are generally 16, 17 or 18. Girls similarly, they go there alone to study. Their parents send them money. Guys have harder time finding accommodation, finding a good PGs, finding a good diner. On the other hand, I think it's great that girls are getting a good hostel or dormitory for them. But I mean, that's huge, such a huge difference.
Can you post that video? Can you find that video for me? I'd like to see it.
Do you think that men are more oppressed in India than they would be in like Europe or America, for example? Because there's actually a sentiment,
think
kind of a belief here that women have a harder time in countries like India and the Middle East. I think that's a widely held belief by many people.
I think that's true. Actually, I wouldn't deny that. We are backward in some areas. I think men also have it harder in some places, but I have to expect, but women also have it in hard in some places. But like difference is huge. You see, if you go to any rural area and if any conservative family, girls would be more discriminated or have a harder time there. And if you go to if you're as a normal guy, you would be more oppressed. I really
Do you
don't
think
know
it
how to
varies?
explain that. It's like
Sorry, just really fast. Do you think it varies by region too?
it varies by the region. It's like India is a really different kind of social place. You cannot measure if some particular group is oppressed or not, because uh, in a way the oppressed class or the minorities have better opportunities or reservation. 49% of the seats are reserved for the oppressed class in India. It's at least 40% for the jobs, government jobs. In a way, they are not oppressed in a legislative, in a governmental way. Legally, they are not oppressed, but they might face some kind of social discriminations. For example, I know a girl, she's my classmate, and her problem is that her parents are really strict and they are just gonna forcefully marry her to somebody she doesn't know, like they did with her sister. It's a very sad place. I mean, she can get help, but the problem is they just don't reach out. There are systems that they can. The thing is, for the boys, when they are faced any kind of difficulties, they do not have something they can reach out. On the other hand, the girls can reach out. There are so many organizations which will be ready to help her. She can, the police will help her, anyone will help her, but they just don't reach out for the help. And because of that, many areas the girls are still oppressed because they just don't reach out for the help. Uh, Even if some do, she's criticized by girls, women more than men. and and for the guys, for the same reason, the government highly favors a girl in everything. Like even if governments were to give food to the hungry people, they wouldn't give it to the boys. They would just feed food to a young infant or a woman. They wouldn't give free food to a man. Even if education system, they wouldn't give seat or seats to or fund the education of a poor man who cannot afford it himself. But on the other hand, they will give it. They will give a girl a free laptop or a bicycle just for attending school, even though she is certainly in a privileged place. Uh, there are girls who are also in bad place, like the guys. Both are in a bad place, but only girl will get help, and the girl who isn't in uh, in a bad place will also get help, which seems a bit of a waste. The thing is, the people do things in India just for support uh, or in the just for the sake of it. Then don't do it for actually helping the people. It's really complicated.
Do you think any of that could be compensatory because there is a view that women are more oppressed there, so they look better to the international community? Like, have they built this education center to be able to show pictures of how they are educating girls and really pushing that movement?
Yes, they have done that.
That's really quite depressing to hear,
I
to be
think
honest.
it's also creates lots of resentment among the youth. If even if you see, uh, there are certain things that India certainly do needs to improve for the women, but they are just wasting their resources. Uh, like just let me give you an example. Like let's say the country has some poor people that cannot afford education. Okay, they will provide a woman free education, not the guy, but they will also use a lot of money to give money or resources or seats to the women that are not oppressed. That seems kind of wrong because they could use it to give it to the one that need it. They are just using it wrongly. We can say that.
Yeah, it sounds like the typical gynocentric monofocus on women, to be honest. In a situation where, yeah, it's more radical than a lot of the stuff we've seen. Because, like, over here, normally speaking, men and women at college will go into separate dorms, but they will be built in the same, um, like they'll be the same sort of dormitory. Like it'll just be copy pasted, at least as far as I've seen.
At my college, the freshman boys got the worst dorms, the oldest dorms, but I don't think they were that much worse than the freshman girls. But we definitely had a little nicer dorms, but it wasn't a huge difference.
Ah, I see. That's interesting. That's interesting how like things can be like filtered, so you can't really like it's one of those things you can't really complain about, but at the same time it always seems to fall down that way, doesn't it? So it always seems to end up with like the guys in the oldest dorm sort of situation with all these problems that we have. You know, it's like those guys just happen to get the short end of the stick in this situation, and that situation, and that situation, and so on and so forth. You know, even if it's only by very slight.
And I think that that's been going on for a very, very long time. You know, they're like, well, the women need a cleaner bathroom. Like that's been going on since the end of time because women are seen as kind of more delicate. But as they're trying to progress and change things, that's not something they want to change. They still want the guys in the shittier dorms.
That's very annoying. I mean, fun. I have a nice bathroom too. Uh,
I think the thing is they compare the woman in low position in the society with a with a more privileged man, but they fail to see a man in a lower social position as compared to a socially privileged woman. Uh, I think the India has a unique position because it also has the first world problems and also the third world problems. Both they both coexist. So it's really difficult to determine who is actually suffering more because if you say in urban areas, the men have significantly so many disadvantages as compared to women. The women in normal places are more privileged. They get more seats, they get more privatization, they get more funds, they get more free gifts, they get free money, they get free support. They are the sole focus of the government is on them. Uh, they are the only one who can legally be the victim. But on the other hand, uh, if you look, if you go into a more conservative or tribalistic or rural places, you can see women clearly oppressed there. So it's kind of really uh, not intersectional, we can say.
yeah, it's interesting. Hey, Hostile Muffin. I haven't seen you around before. Quite one. All right. Okay, so we've been talking about intersectional feminism and systemic discrimination against men for the people who've just turned up. Does anyone else have anything interesting they'd like to say about this? Because I know we've 3 or 4 of us have been dominating the conversation.
I got one
I think,
idea. Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
was
was
thinking
gonna
about
say
something.
Ray wanted to say something. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Rain, go on.
All right, well, I was thinking before we talked about the men groups, and I had this brilliant idea I didn't think of before. Basically, what if there would be like, concerns about shutting down the group and whatnot from, I don't know, some kind of oppressive organizations, and what the men could just have this idea of getting a group together with the goal of criticizing men. I mean, all right, okay, all right. It sounds bad at first, but just listen. Like the thing is that it would first involve sarcasm, obviously, because men would be starting to talk like about how bad men are, the bad things that they did in history, and so on and so forth, just like feminists like to do. But then, of course, as would progress, they would be like, starting to shift to sarcasm, like that men are so bad, so evil. Every man is so bad, and it's a psychological relief because they know themselves that they're not bad, and they would understand it in between the lines. And you see, because there wouldn't be anyone from the feminist side watching, so they could just give these hints, winks, these suggestions in between the lines, and they would be in relief themselves. Yeah, but what that would accomplish in general is that in places where we see that the men's groups are getting oppressed or accused, they could just publicly say that that's what they are doing. That's what their goals is. That the men would just gather there and just talk about what men did bad to criticize themselves. And I had this idea when I remember from Slavoj Žižek. Don't know if you guys know him, but basically he gave this idea about racism, similar things. How there's this hard racism, but there's also this soft racism where the person from like the two people from different races, they bash their own race, but they're doing it in a fun or playful manner, chillful manner, not for real, just kind of in a self-humiliating way, humble way. And basically the other guy realizes that, oh, no, you don't do it that bad, we are the bad guys, you know how many bad things we did. And then he's criticized himself, and basically the white guy criticizes the white race, the black guy criticizes the black race, the Asian criticizes the Asian race. And I thought about it could be the same with men, the men's groups could just get together, criticize themselves, and it would be like reverse psychological relief. They would burn out all the, well, if they would have any ideas that men are bad, or if they would be maybe conditioned by society that they are, the baddies, they could pretty much, yeah, we're the baddies, we're so bad, and just burn it all out, but also have a good time with each other, because they would all understand that it's not real, and sarcasm would be
I don't
involved.
think I see what you're getting at. I see what the idea. I don't think that that's necessary yet, because we are heavily criticized, but we're still allowed to exist. I mean, that would be necessary if there was a true government clampdown, maybe. But at the same time, part of the reason why I don't like that is because I don't want to have to hide what we're trying to do. I don't want to have to try and be sneaky about it. I want to be open. I want to be direct. And if we get criticism, we get criticism. You know what? I would rather be straight ahead. I would rather be completely honest. I would rather be completely direct and say, this is what we believe and this is why. And when we get criticism, we answer that criticism.
Yeah, that is commendable. I completely agree. It's it depends on people. Some people like you, I believe, would find more expression and more in their identity to do it like this, to be head on, straightforward, and public. And some people maybe would. I mean, others could find it more fun in the sneaky way. I mean, I don't know if
But
this
see,
would
I used to kind of, not exactly what you were describing, but I used to do a softer approach and a less direct approach. And I never got anywhere. First of all, I never felt satisfied doing it. And secondly, if you constrain yourself to that dynamic, then it's going to be very easy to make you to silence you, and you're making it more difficult to kind of stand up for yourself. But I get what you're saying. I mean, have you talked to guys in your area? I mean, by all means, try it. So I'm not saying not to try it, because I could see how I could actually see the value of the humor aspect, and it would become like a fun social event to go to for men.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I can that's interesting. I'm guessing you're in France?
No, in Eastern Europe, Lithuania.
Okay, where?
Lithuania, it's one of the three Baltic states.
Lithuania, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia.
Yeah,
You said Western Europe.
No, Eastern. Did I see Western?
Sorry.
He did say Eastern.
Yeah,
Sorry.
maybe my accent is a little heavy. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, when I thought about this idea, I did kind of see the potential humoristic or leisure value to it. Maybe it's not as practical, and you can make a fair point that it would be rather easy to silence the people when they're like this, and I suppose it really is something when the government is just feminist and they just say no to men, and then men have to do this. It's like a fictional story where this kind of strategy could be used, not in our world yet. Just kidding.
You guys have conscription there, right?
Say what?
National service, like where boys have to join the national service for a year, right?
Yes, if we don't work, we do have to do that.
And it's male only, right?
Not sure. I think so, but really, don't quote me on that. I don't know.
Okay. I remember reading an article, I think 2-3 years ago. Putin was going crazy again, as usual, and so the government of Lithuania, they ramped up their conscription and they increased it.
Oh, could be. Don't remember. Not that much in the news. More about theory and philosophy.
Do you ever feel nervous about sharing a border with Putin?
No, not that much. I try to not get into the politics of it all. I mean,
Are you in NATO?
Yeah, we're in NATO.
Oh, okay, then you'll be fine.
Yeah, it's all good. Hopefully. Well, if it's honest, I got another story for you guys. The only time where I experienced in a group, a little bit mistreatment on men, it's also going to be a little funny. It's basically when I was, I don't know how it's called in English, but it's basically, being in the army for teenagers is less strict and all that stuff. And teens with teens, and they got their special units. We basically, we had to shower after the routine, and the boilers weren't working. So basically, the usual routine is that the females go first, right, and then the males, and that's all good. But then the boilers, they for some reason didn't work, and it was known and it was declared that the men gotta wash themselves, shower in cold water. It was really uncomfortable, and but yeah, well, it's not that bad, of course, and especially since that the military, the army, they got that cliche where the men gotta be strong, they gotta be tough. So basically, it doesn't seem like that bad of a mistreatment. It was quite
Was it
fun.
winter?
No, it wasn't winter. It was
Okay,
autumn, I think. It was all right. We made the jokes about those women, having to be taken care of. So I guess we just coped with our defense mechanisms back then.
It doesn't sound like privilege to me if you, yeah.
Say what? Excuse me, I didn't quite catch that.
It does sound like privilege to me if one gender's getting special treatment because they're soft and stuff like that. Quote unquote.
Yeah, I agree.
Why did they
Haven't-
say that the men were not working hard enough, though? I mean, were they just punishing a specific unit for not completing a task?
No. It was just the boilers that weren't working, and the usual routine in the showers was that females go first and then males second. So they just said, "Well, we're just gonna do the usual, but the boilers aren't gonna work, and so you gotta take it cold." I don't exactly know why they weren't working. Was it something wrong? Something I don't even know. Something was up with them. I don't really remember. It was over 8 years ago or something. It was a
Did
teen.
the girls still get the hot water?
Yeah, the woman did get hot water, and we didn't.
I'll tell you what was wrong with them then. They went up into the boiler and they turned off the hot stopcock. The hot stopcock, sorry. There's no hot water for you.
Maybe, I don't know what they did that though.
I haven't met a Lithuanian MRA before, so I'm curious. What is among your age group, and also society in general, if you want, with media? What is the general perception of feminism and men's rights? What would you say the situation there is?
Well, I would say that feminism has a decently strong focus, but really, I'm not following that much. I can't give you an accurate description. I'm sorry.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
It was interesting to see different situations in different countries and different laws, and then the things that are different, and then the things that are in common. And the things that are different under law, but then the things that are kind of the same by human nature. So it's always nice to compare different places and different things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is good to compare things. It does build up a worldwide picture for us. I mean, it's all these interesting sort of stories from across the world. It shows that feminism is a global movement that has got its claws into every single country there is. I mean, the only country I don't think they've got a big hold on is Antarctica. That's unpopulated, so.
It's not really a country.
That was kind of the joke. Yeah.
Sorry, I guess I...
Don't worry, I did laugh, but I was muted, so we didn't hear.
Well, anyway, does anyone else have anything interesting they'd like to bring up?
I'd love to maybe discuss a topic for next week if anyone has any suggestions.
Good idea. Good idea.
I'd like
Actually,
to.
I do have something relevant to this. Judge, I think there was this posted on the subreddit too, but Joe Biden, in terms of intersectionality, he passed a restaurant relief bill for restaurants that shut down because of COVID, give them grant money so they can open up again and keep going. But it was done in a way that only certain groups qualified. And for the first 21 days, only restaurants who were owned by women or minority men or veterans were able to get the loan for the first 21 days. And a white male restaurant owner sued and said this discrimination, and he won the lawsuit. The judge ruled that it was discriminatory. But that was an example what Joe Biden was doing of intersectionality in play. It was an example of having a
Blue,
law.
would
Yeah,
would you link that in the Voice Decision channel?
yeah, definitely.
That'd be good.
I was actually just pulling up as we speak. But yeah, I mean that is literally what intersectionality is now being codified into law. And my argument was, and is, if you have a family, right, a husband and a wife, trying to support their kids and pay the rent, what difference does it make which one is the restaurant owner and which one isn't? So if the wife is the restaurant owner, they would qualify, but if the husband was the restaurant owner, the same family now doesn't qualify.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because it's going to, if it becomes a regular thing, it's going to result in Blue, your mic's on. It's going to result in a lot of businesses being handed over to the female partner, and then the man hasn't got a leg to stand on in divorce court because he gave her the business, it's her business, and she walks away with everything. But I'm glad to hear that guy managed to sue and win, because that is an unconstitutional. Well, all of this stuff is totally unconstitutional. It goes against all of the rules about gender shouldn't matter, which is, it's really annoying that there's so many of these laws that seem to be, and codes and practices and things that seem to be just still in function, even though they're unconstitutional. Of course, it helps that you actually have a constitution. In places like England, we do have anti-discrimination laws, but it would take a lawyer to work out if they were discriminatory against men or not.
Well, you guys have a constitution.
We don't have not a solid one. We've kind of got a bunch of it's kind of hazy is what I'm saying. We don't have it's not all written down on one document, and it's not considered as it's not difficult to change. There's no laws that are you need to go to a special course and screw around and go through years of stuff just to change them. There's nothing like that. We've got you can change any one of our laws at any time. It's at least that's as far as I understand it. It would, there might be other laws that would prevent you doing that, but it would be specific to the law in question. So it's very hard to say what's our constitution in practice. But yeah, Kathleen, did you have any ideas or did anyone have any ideas for the topic for next week? It does really help me, in fact, because as soon as I've got the topic, I can schedule next week's stream, and that gives us a lot more listeners.
A huge overarching topic, but maybe we could do a little more research on men-only spaces and how they've been suppressed and attacked in the past. So if we brought up a little bit today, if we find some specific examples of proposed men's groups that were then protested against.
That is an interesting one. I think Blue has a couple of videos on.
Yeah, are you talking, Kathleen, about because there's a difference between actually a distinct difference between male-only spaces and men's groups.
I guess I'm thinking about both of them. It would be more interesting if a men's group in general was completely banned or protested against.
Well, yeah, we have examples of both. You could kind of tie it into how the against hate threats. Sorry, I can't talk today. The against hate subreddit has really been coming after us lately. And there's one user in particular who I engaged them and I kind of challenged them on what they were saying, and of course they didn't have a good answer. And the sub had kind of dodged attention from that whole crowd for quite a long time. They mostly focused on like the blatantly racist subs, or maybe some of the MAGTOW subs, and the Donald was the big one they really looked at. But now it seems like they've started to turn their attention to us. And I will say, this is true, that we have had such a sharp increase in new users. We're starting to get more mainstream, more casual people who come in, and they don't always post the highest quality, I think. And sometimes you'll get someone coming in, make some angry rant about their ex, and it gets posted. And even if those posts don't get upvoted, they're still there. I kind of wish the moderation would be a little bit less laissez faire than they've historically been, because the group does a very good job of self-policing itself, but there's only so much you could do once a group hits a certain size. We could tie it into that, but we could talk about how feminists say that they help men too, as an excuse for how they're against the men's rights movement. Just opposing the men's rights movement in and of itself is harmful to men, because you're basically saying that only women are allowed to decide how people can organize themselves and talk about their own issues, which is such an arrogant and sexist attitude to have. It's like, how come feminists get to decide that this shouldn't be a men's rights movement? Like, what gives them the authority to make that call?
Well, they give themselves the authority, unfortunately. Kathleen, did you want to say?
This is too off topic, but I'm not on the subreddit. Do you think I'm missing a lot of information?
I actually go to the subreddit to find topics for this talk. So yeah, there is a load of stuff on there, all kinds of things. It's well worth driving to.
Okay, I'll try to do that. I'm not on Reddit, but I can try to set it up, figure it out.
I mean, we do actually have a stream from the Reddit on here, but it's hidden unless you ask us to give it to you, because it beeps a lot. Like, and you see every new post. You don't just see the good ones. You see all of them. So you get the hate posts as well, and people posting weird. Yeah.
I'll definitely look into it. Thanks.
Right, no problem.
Kathleen suggested a good topic, but weren't we planning to hold a debate between a certain feminist organization and you guys, just to find some kind of middle ground or anything like that? Can I suggest someone?
Go ahead and suggest what you're going to suggest.
There's a certain organization called Feminism India. If you could just send some email or message them for a debate or something, because many of their material is really typical feminist stuff, just lazier. Though they have some interesting articles, I think they have a massive following. If you could challenge them for debate or discussion, I think it would be nice. Not just them. It's also okay if it's some other feminist organization or feminists themselves.
Oh, I'd love that. Have like one of our live streams be a live debate. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'd be very happy to get on board with that. I mean, if I missed some of that, sorry, because my Discord went muted, but Which group was it? Specifically?
Femini- uh, Feminism India.
Oh, really? Would they be open to a conversation?
I don't know. You can try, but I asked Kali the cat first, but she didn't accept it. You can try, but like there's certainly so many organizations. You can even ask people from college gender studying gender studies in particular. Anyone you
Hmm.
think would be great to debate with. I'm just suggesting someone.
I think it'd
Yeah,
be great.
maybe.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say maybe we could put an all points out on Twitter or something. But go on.
I think it would be so great to look into, but it might take more than a week to organize that.
We did actually have
But we got more than a week.
we did actually have a feminist group that somebody was talking to, and they said they were going to come on here, and then they totally chickened out or something, and they were a total no-go a while ago. So it's going to be, if we're not going to be able to really schedule this, and like even if we get a guarantee, it's not necessarily the case that they'll actually allow it on the day. They might just say no, or like not even turn up. So it's very hard. But getting us into a gender studies class, if we could set up the rules of engagement so it's fair, because obviously it's going to be like 30 of them, and we don't want them all shouting at the mic, and like we won't even be able to hear them.
I think it fits between 3 or 4 people. They can say you can choose 3 or 4 representation from their class or the organization in particular, or if you can just do 3 or 4 feminist icons, it would be great. You, Blue, and Nipin. I think 3 of you would be a good choice.
It'd be a good choice,
Researching
right?
Yeah, I mean the details would depend on what group we get, but yeah, I think we should start reaching out to different people. Maybe even try. It could be interesting. Is maybe try reaching out to the those subreddits against hate subreddits, ask feminism. Maybe we should reach out to the anti-MRA subreddits and make it a Reddit thing, like a Reddit event.
That certainly would be interesting. That would be very hard.
I don't
feminist.
think that I don't think that would be a great. I mean, you can choose a particular someone to debate, but asking a certain group for a debate with a group they hate is a recipe for disaster. I don't think that would bring anything.
Why do you think so?
I mean, it's literally on their name against men's rights. You can choose someone from that organization to for debate. You can just choose a few people, but if you just ask a whole subreddit for debate, I don't think that's
Oh,
gonna
no, no,
work
no. I
because
mean,
in the end,
it would be with
they're
the moderators. It wouldn't just be like every person from the subreddit. It would be like we select a few from each side and then live stream it.
oh,
Yeah.
I personally think
then
that
it's okay. More.
we could do it, but we'd have to pick the subreddit very carefully. Like too many of these feminist subreddits, they're so into information control that their response would literally be just to ban you and ignore you in most cases.
But they wouldn't be able to see. The thing is, they get their power from disinformation and manipulation and controlling their own space. They couldn't do that in an organized debate.
Right,
They'd have
which
to
is why
rely.
they wouldn't show up to one.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, we can at least try. 'Cause I'm
I
sure
think
there was.
in any group you're going to be able to find
I think
someone who is self-pleasing enough and overly confident enough that they think they could win in a debate. I think you'll be able to find someone in any group if you look that would show up.
I agree with Kathleen.
Yeah. It would be a case of just how we approach this and the group we approach, I think, because there's no way that any request for people to voice debates on our feminism is going to work. Or men's lib might be more open to it, but it
I would
depends.
Men's
actually.
lib.
But it's
If
no
we're
use
talking
then.
about the Reddit, then men's lib is a joke. It's just basically another branch of feminism.
I know that, but I do see posts on men's lib from people who I can tell sort of get it. And I see a lot of men's lib users who are MRAs, but they just don't know it yet because they've been fed the manipulation and the lies and the brainwashing. And so they believe it. But you could tell that they get how men are being treated. You can tell they kind of get it. And they just need, I think, positive exposure to the men's rights movement. And I think we could flip a lot of people.
You know what? That's actually looking like a plan. We find some of these people on that subreddit who specifically are on the fence, and then we personally, privately invite them over to have a conversation on the live chat on a Friday.
I'd rather make it general. I'd rather make it something that is publicly streamed to everybody, so we can get thousands.
Most
we
of those
can.
people, they're hardcore feminists. We're not gonna manage to persuade them to come over to the men's rights side. They already know what men's rights is. They hate it.
A lot of them
They're
aren't. A lot of
I
them say
disagree
like, "Oh,
about
I've
them
never
knowing.
been to the sub. I've never, you know." So I disagree with that. Some of them are, yes, but some of them aren't.
I think that arranging it in public could be our first recourse, but once we get banned for doing that, I think going after specific people and asking them personally if they'd like to be part of a live Friday debate on the men's rights Discord would be a good plan.
I think, but the important thing would be to choose the opponent wisely, because opponents wanna pick someone that's not highly competent for the up to the debate, and will just only end up screaming. I think it would be a good idea to just see your options and choose people carefully. I think I am about to leave. Bye, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the idea of like choosing them carefully. Blue, if you know anyone who specifically you had in mind when you were saying that, that would be very handy. I mean, if maybe we could, it would probably be best if we approached the moderators first.
That's what I would say.
Post.
And I would also say, I'm going to message the moderators of men's rights, and I'm gonna tell them this idea. Then I'm gonna ask them, maybe it should be you does it, because you're the owner and your screen name, your username is the name of the website. So maybe it should be you, Ma. Message the mods of MR and ask them if you
men
can.
are human.
What?
I would rather it was men are human.
Yeah, it should come from you.
Enough.
And then tell them that ask if you can make a post in the men's rights subreddit first, and say we would like to host a debate against men's lib or whoever you choose. So please come and watch, whenever, and then make sure you tag men's lib so the moderators will see that.
Wait, you can tag people into direct message.
If you make a post,
can't.
yes, you can. If you make a post on men's rights or any sub or any comment, and you put the r/ and you write it out, it becomes a link that the moderators will see it's been linked to.
I'm not sure that they would necessarily check every link. They probably get links to an awful lot because they've got their people in every subreddit saying, no, you don't want to go to men's rights, you want to go to men's lib, it's the best place. And
right, moderators see that. Moderators can see that when you actually do when you actually write it out properly and it becomes a blue clickable link. Moderators can see that.
yeah, they can, but how many of those links do they get per day, and are they looking through all of them?
Well, then
I
I
think it
suppose
would
that
be better to call them by name. You can at people by name. You can do
or
you, the
just click message the moderators and message them all.
Hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, I might just. It would probably be best if we message the moderators directly, very politely, asking them about the debate between our two movements. Like,
Okay.
frame it as a middle ground sort of thing,
Okay.
and tell them that they can, if they, if they want like to make any requests, they can do, although, it'd have to be stuff about being fair, I think. Okay, well, I think that this has come to a natural sort of end, and I'm sure people getting tired now that we've been going for 2 hours. So, Kathleen, did you have any ideas about a topic for next week?
Not specifically. I was just maybe if we could, if be sent some information on specific men's groups that have been shut down because they're men's groups, and just discuss that a little. I don't think that's like a overarching, like a single topic for the week, but I think that would be great to add in.
What was the name of that person who he tried to set up a shelter for men in Canada, and then he killed himself because he didn't get any support whatsoever?
Earl Silverman.
Yeah.
We could talk about how the feminists battered him and then claimed no responsibility whatsoever, but that would be kind of awkward because I've lost the main video evidence of them doing that. Unfortunately, I didn't download it. He was on some Ellen or something like that, and the feminists were just backing on him, and he was just smiling and being polite. But they were like screaming and getting up and getting really angry just because he wanted to shelter for men. And
I'd really like to see that video. Oh my god.
I'd like to see it too. I can't find it anywhere, unfortunately. I think it's got leaked.
I'd love at some point to talk about the men's suicide rate in general as well, and how men's mental health is not nearly as important and it's downplayed compared to women. But I can see where that would be a very uncomfortable topic to talk about. But that ties into this man, killing himself and all of that.
Okay, so let's do mental health next week with, as a secondary topic, men's spaces being shut down. How does that sound?
Sounds good. Could you maybe post it in announcements?
All right, I will do then. Well, thank you everyone, and good night. I will be knocking off soon. If anyone wants to continue talking, that's fine, but we'll be ending this. Good night, everyone.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night.
See you on next week.
Hello, brother. Hello. Hello, bro. Am I audible? Hello.
Hey, I'm still on, but I'm just about to shut down. Did you want something? Sorry, I was just typing out the announcement.
What are you saying?
What is what? Sorry.
Your accent is, I'm not able to understand your accent.
Oh, I'm from the UK. Sorry.
You are from UK.
Yeah, I'm from the UK. You from India?
Yes, I am not able to understand that UK English.
Sorry. It goes both ways a little bit. I'm getting more used to the Indian accent, but I still have trouble understanding people.
Yeah,
Hold on. Let me just. No, just to make sure the stream